Bringing it down. I was just
Slow
thinking,
fade.
right, maybe instead of maybe slow fade in between these seasons, and in 2026, we have a rest week after the wrap week since we're wrapping up this season this week,
Ooh.
maybe.
Things to think about. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's a really good thing to think about. How do we build in rest? Because
Mhm.
we always talk about it,
Yes,
right?
we do.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes life gets in the way, but sometimes like I'll do a big thing and then I'll be like, why didn't I put in a day off after that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And again, like to be specific, and I know I just said it, but y'all, today we're wrapping season 22, right? And I was looking at the information, pulling up all these amazing expert guests that we have. And this season, we took our breaks, right? We do have the rest
Hmm.
scheduled for the holidays.
Hmm.
We have the rest scheduled at the beginning of the year. And then it's like outside of the season that you normally consider rest, what about the rest? So, uh, pun
Well,
intended,
and
right?
is the holiday season really restful, especially for
Mm,
women?
my
I mean,
goodness.
that's
Let's
a
go with
whole
this.
nother topic,
No,
right?
not
So,
necessarily.
and this whole concept of we don't have to earn rest,
Mhm,
that we can just take rest. I mean, it's nice. I kind of like to put it in
mhm.
after a big milestone or a big
Right,
this, but
right.
yeah.
And I would love to say more there. Like, as we move to the intro, it's for me, putting it after work is not about, "I need to earn it." It's more of what Kobe says in one of his, speeches, "Don't rest in the middle, you rest at the end." Now,
Mm.
I got a little caveat because sometimes I'm like, "If I need to rest, Imma rest, Kobe," you know
Right,
what I mean? But
right.
sometimes it is
And the other
the
thing,
you know what I
I have a
mean? You gotta
question there.
finish.
Where is the end?
And see, you know what
Right?
I mean? Because then and that's subjective and it depends and sometimes it moves. And so absolutely, but um having it scheduled, listening to your body, looking at the situation and adding it when it's needed and maybe reorganizing the schedule sometimes. Yeah, I think it's all those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
should we do this intro and kick off episode 185?
Let's do it. Hey y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon best-selling publisher, author, and all-natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade your self and community care.
Yes, together we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do
How do we do
this?
it? And, not all at the same time, So, again, this is a wrap. We will be talking about all 8 dimensions. We'll go through emotional and mental, environmental, the different guests that we had. And this is the episode where we talk about the products, the resources, and the stories that we shared all season. But we do usually split it up one at a time because that's how you take steps in life, right? You can only do one thing at a
Incremental steps,
my goodness.
right?
And if you need to pause so the next step happens, pause and, add those in like Still Point talks about.
Right. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that because, when we talk in Still Point about what is self care, there's a
Mm,
part when we just start the book that says what it is not.
mm,
And it's not continuing to overwork ourselves in cycles of where we crash and burn and then have to recover.
mhm.
And yeah, I probably didn't say the whole thing correctly because I'm a little tired today because I'm not living my advice at the moment. But it's right. I have to, that's the one I truly have to remind myself about is
Yeah.
that because, and I think part of my problem, Shannon, is I love what we do.
Mm,
I'm so
mhm.
excited about the different projects and the different things and with my other work also. And
Mhm.
so I'm at that stage where I have to say no to things I love.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can't, right?
Right.
Sometimes in living my best life of
Mhm.
a business owner and a business partner
Mm,
and that and needing to take care of family and things
Mhm, mhm.
that, as most women, it's like, okay, if I'm going to go for my dreams, then sometimes I might be a little tired. So,
Yes.
you
Yep.
know,
And that's the day for me, he says, "Shannon," I'm still thinking about your tone when I told you I was up till 6 something this morning, and I said, "Y'all," I told her, right, I had to pull out the what do we talk about? The Enneagrams, right? Um, no, Enneagrams is a challenger, that's where I'm an 8. What is it where it's a manifester? What is it called?
oh,
It's not
that's our
Enneagram.
human design.
Yes,
Human
human
design.
design, right? And so I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that I learned that about myself because I look back and I can definitely see the cycles of
Mhm.
uh resting and working and what they say for
Mhm.
manifestors is that there is this creative, this energetic cycle, right, y'all?
Mhm.
That a lot of times you'll be creating and learning and putting stuff out, and then sometimes you need rest. And last night was one of those nights. I tried to go to sleep and I was thinking about receipts, thinking about graphics, thinking about all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? I'm gonna just go do it because that gives me more rest than trying to get however many few hours before my alarm goes off and then starting it, like, I could just wake up at whatever time and have it done.
Now you're sounding like a perimenopausal or menopausal woman. I just have to tell you. Like
Yeah?
you're getting to do that now, and
Mhm,
then there'll be some years that you don't, and
mm,
then all of a sudden you're awake again. And
mhm.
you're like, "Oh, I might as well get up because
Right.
sleep is not happening here."
You
So,
know what I mean? My goodness. So, and that's what I love about being connected to you, being
mhm,
connected to all the ladies that we talk to about around the world, talk to about different things because it's like, okay, this is what it looks like now, but this is how you can consider your capacity, consider how you daydream about stuff based on what reality is. And
mhm.
that's one of the biggest things when we talk about wellness and what to do. I really check myself on realistic expectations. Is what you're expecting to happen realistic, or are you just beating yourself up because you thought you should because somebody else said something when that's was never going to be the case?
Well, my co-author Sheila K. Collins, who's also one of your co-authors because she's in
Yes,
volume one.
yes, she
Um,
is.
we have this discussion often. Like she's in
Mhm,
her 80s, has lived
mhm,
a very full life. Like she
mhm,
was one
mhm,
of the people that helped get Title IX passed, so
mhm,
women could have the same access as men in sports. That was part
mhm.
of her work in the world, and
I don't think we talked about that. Did we talk
I
about
know
that
we might
before?
not have because it
Mm,
comes up every once in a while. It's like
I
she's
don't
a
think so.
legend, and I mean, but it's like
Wow.
so many women that do
Yeah,
things behind the scenes that we don't know
of
their
course.
names. Her
Yes.
best friend Rose used to say, "You can get a lot done when you don't care who gets credit for it," and
Mhm.
so she's done a lot of stuff like that in the world, and
Wow.
we're connected to a lot of women who have done a lot of that stuff in the world, right?
Yes,
We
yes,
may
yes.
just know what are they doing in this moment? We may not know the years of history that they've done before, but
Mhm,
we often have this conversation about realistic expectations because a lot of our standards are set on white male expectations. They're
mm,
set on the old standard of the guy got to do whatever he wanted to do,
mhm,
and the woman took care of everything else, right?
mhm,
So sometimes we put false, or just my opinion, and
mhm,
Sheila and I have this conversation, we put false expectations on ourselves because
mhm.
we're not factoring in the caregiving. And the reality
That
is,
part.
we are caregiving. Most
Yes.
women I know are caregiving. You're
Yes.
caregiving your partner. You're caregiving
Mhm,
your community. You're caregiving your parents.
mhm, mhm,
The sandwich generation. Like right
mhm,
this week, I'm in Texas,
mhm.
supporting mom with
Yeah.
starting to clean out
Mhm.
our family home. Because,
Yeah.
listeners know my dad passed away last May,
Yes.
and we put a pause on everything to give ourselves some time to grieve
Yeah.
and are just coming back to, okay, now we have to deal with all the stuff.
Mhm.
And whoo, you know, it
Yeah.
it is challenging. So
To
it
say
is
the
one
least.
of right? We've
Yeah.
had this conversation on the show about when you were dealing with your mom's stuff. And like
Mhm.
it is just, yep, it's just stuff. But it's one of those things that it's like I was sitting on the porch. It's a very Texas story that starts out I was sitting on the porch, right?
Mhm.
But it's gorgeous in Texas this week. It's in the 70s. It's actually
Mm.
crawling up to 80s. It might get hot before
Wow.
I leave
Yeah,
here,
it's beautiful here too.
which is not okay that it's in the 80s in
That's what I was
February.
thinking.
But
It's really crazy.
I was sitting on the porch and we grew up. on a small farmland. That's what
Mhm,
they'd call it now. Back
mhm,
then, they just called it rural. But I'm sitting on the porch and there's these giant old pecan trees that I grew up with, and they haven't bloomed because it's not time for them to bloom yet. And but the wind was just like a slight breeze, and it was just gorgeous. Like it was a gorgeous moment in the midst of all this grief and in the midst of hard. Like things are hard for a lot of people right now, right? And I was just, as we always talk about, like taking a moment in nature or to breathe or to look around with our senses and see or feel or hear and give gratitude for the moment, right?
mhm, mhm,
Like this was this beautiful moment I had with smells of my childhood and sights of my childhood, and it's very bittersweet. It's very bittersweet to me, but yeah, it's and my mom and I were driving to my cousin's house after we'd worked for hours, and I said to her, I said, I forget how exhausting grief is.
mhm.
And so I just want to say that to folks who are, and mostly women, yes, men grieve. I don't want to say that, but
Right.
as as women, as we are living our lives, as we're going for our dreams, as we're grieving, because almost
Mhm.
everybody I know is grieving at least one thing, if not three, um, that to be gentle with ourselves, because grief is heavy and exhausting. So,
Yeah, and like you said, not because men don't experience it, you know? What I hear you saying is, sometimes we forget about the other layers and hours, days, weeks, months, and years of
unpaid
work.
labor.
The unpaid labor, right? Dishes is a whole work I consider it a work block, y'all. Like, it might as well for the house, you know? Um, and on top of everything, yes, that
Mhm.
can make you even more tired, and not that men aren't doing that, but just space to consider it and to speak it and to be, I think is beautiful. And like you said, to really, to be patient. I was reading in the moment, right? I was reading this Embracing the Unknown last night, y'all,
Mm.
and one of our
Who's
future
that
actually,
by?
she's coming this season, actually, season 23, next season. Lisa, and forgive me, Lisa, if I say your last name wrong, DeAngelis, I think. And what I love on one of these pages, what does it say? It was talking about how we never step into the same river twice. I underline stuff when I read and everything, y'all. Here it is. It says, and I might be pronouncing this wrong. What I find most interesting about Heraclitus, again, I might be pronouncing that wrong, isn't just this inevitability of change. He so simply states is how he goes on to express the entire experience of change. No man ever steps into the same river twice.
Mm.
And it's decided from something from 1978.
Woo,
And I love that because it's not the
it's good.
same. It might be
No,
the same place. But
no.
even, whether it's on a team at work, whether it's on
Mhm,
even if, as business partners, where they're saying with a different volume, so we're still talking about the 8 dimensions, but the stories are completely different, like,
mhm.
even the smell of the pecan trees before they blossom is different this year than it was 50 years ago, you know what I mean?
Right?
Because of the people who were there and in your perspective.
Well, and I'm different,
Mhm.
and, my dad's not present, so it'll
Yeah,
always be different,
right.
and, yeah, I think that and change is inevitable. I love that. We never step into the same river twice. I think
Mhm.
about that because I often visit the Chattahoochee. Like, I'm not far I'm a mile east of the Chattahoochee River where I live, and so it is one of my places. It's one of my sacred places that I go to walk, and, we have this gorgeous bridge, that crosses the Chattahoochee, and depending on if it's I mean, different literally from the time I walk across it and walk and come back, it can be different, right? You can
Mm.
see different things. The height of the river is different. So I love
Mhm.
that analogy. I really,
Mm.
really like that.
That's
It's,
beautiful, the height of the river. It's so important, you know? What were you gonna say? You know what?
no, I was just thinking that knowing that, life is flowing
Mhm.
and that change doesn't have to be bad. It can be
Mhm.
good. It
Mhm.
can be exciting. Yes, sometimes it can be devastating.
Mhm.
What's happening in our country to me right now is not good change.
Mhm.
Um, and we have to, and I think about it because I love rivers, and I've been in a lot of rivers in my life. I've fallen in a lot of rivers in my life, and um, knowing how deep the water is, knowing
Come
what
on.
the pitfalls are,
Mm.
knowing where, like, what safety equipment do we need. I think
No,
about
really.
that in these times that we're living, and knowing what we need to do to protect ourselves and those we love. I think all of that is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Mm. So, what I just thought about, you're talking about tools. I've been looking up different stuff. I found these waterproof bags that have like a roll down top. They're really
I've got
lightweight.
one for
I figured
kayaking.
you would, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I think about like through this season. Okay, difficult seasons, you still
Hmm.
need what you need with you, right?
Hmm.
How do you protect what you have with you and make it to where you're going, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it's community. It's being connected to the 8 dimensions of
Right.
wellness. It's looking at the beauty every day and in the different
Hmm.
situations because things are going to be different tomorrow. And I don't want to miss the moment of the beauty of today while still having the opportunity to process everything that's going on.
Right. And it's telling your people you love them.
And
It's,
showing them,
yeah,
and taking the time to show them in the midst of the busyness. So if that
and
is
connect with
resetting
them.
the sink, yeah, if that is resetting the
Right.
sink and talking at home before the next official work block, if it is pausing the work block like we talked about, maybe we take a week off, or maybe there's certain time in the day that you take off to reserve that for yourself, for your loved ones. That those things have made it so that I can keep going for 185 episodes from term to term and
Hmm.
season to season and still be excited to come in every Wednesday live at 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found out, I didn't even have a chance to tell you this before the show, but I
Yeah, I have
found
more
out
for you
a
too.
friend of mine, like somebody I adored,
Mhm.
recently passed away.
Mm,
And
I'm
I
sorry.
hadn't seen, thank you. I hadn't seen them since the pandemic.
Was
And
is this a mutual friend?
no, it's not
Okay.
somebody, I would have
Okay.
told you.
Not
I
of
wouldn't
us,
have,
but somebody else. I saw a post.
probably. It could have been a
Okay.
mutual friend.
Okay.
Um, uh, it's, yeah, life is short, y'all. Like, life is short. So love your people up and connect with them and tell them you love them and show them you love them. And I keep referencing the movie Don't Look Up. Did you ever see that
Mm.
movie?
Phew. My favorite part is Only Man on Earth. We out here, y'all. Like, who is he streaming to? His mom left. The Jonah is still streaming live. I love the commitment to streaming.
Right?
That's my favorite part. Yeah.
Mine was We Tried, and mine was the final scene. Like
What was the final
when
scene again?
they were having a meal together, they were
Mm,
connecting,
yeah, I think
and
I remember.
they
Yeah.
were connecting and saying grace, and just and those everyday moments, right? When I think about how important those everyday moments are to the 8 dimensions of wellness, like,
Mhm. I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, you talk about the changes. I'm just grateful for a hot shower when I can reset, space to reset and stretch and quiet myself and not worried about if somebody's gonna come in and like try to deport me because I know a little bit of Spanish. Like it's crazy.
right?
Um, yeah, so I've definitely been grateful and tapping into those simple things more.
Well, even if you did, you know your rights, right? Do you know your
A-
rights
And
right
we were
now?
talking about them. I feel like I
Okay.
need to be more, what did we say earlier? Legally literate.
So there's in the United States, if you're listening in
Mhm,
the United States, and ICE, which is our immigration services, comes,
mhm,
first of all, they are not allowed into places of business, places of
mhm,
worship, or you can say no
mhm,
with if they don't have a warrant. They have
mhm,
to have a warrant signed by a judge.
mhm,
And what they often carry is, and I can't remember the name of what they often carry, but it
mhm.
doesn't have a signature of a judge on it.
It might have
So
their signature, right?
right. So they
Mhm,
can't enter your car, they can't enter your home. You
mhm,
can say no thank you. You can say or not say. You can hold up
mhm,
a piece of paper that says I have the right to not speak.
mhm,
And if you don't have a warrant, then you can close the door.
mhm,
And sometimes they'll try to intimidate or things like that, but as allies,
mhm,
because you and I are US citizens, so
Mhm.
we would be allies in a situation.
Of
Um,
course.
Also knowing the rights of our fellow humans that are
Yeah.
near us, right?
Yeah, and you said close the door. I also wanna say specifically because I have been, working on
Hmm.
it and watching videos and
Hmm.
different things, the door does not have to be open. You do not have to open
Correct,
the door if they do not
correct.
have a warrant. They can
And
put
you
it on
can
the
say
window or
slide it
slide it
under the
under.
door.
Mhm.
Slide you, and actually, I would recommend that you don't open the door.
Right.
So,
And I would recommend that you actually look at it to make sure that it is signed the way that it needs to and
yeah,
that they have the documentation. This video I was watching from a lawyer was also talking about as allies, you can record it, not to
yeah,
interfere, right? Not to
yeah.
say names or give any specific information, and also not to just post it on social media, but to make sure that it's spread the right way so that it
Well,
actually helps
yeah.
more than hurt.
I think I saw that one too. So don't
Yeah.
post, especially if
Yeah.
immigration is issue. But you want to talk about videoing. Did
Hmm.
you see that town hall where
No.
the doctor who is actually running for a seat. I can't
Mhm.
remember what seat they're running for.
Okay.
She stood up and interrupted a hall and got dragged out by three men, and people recorded but didn't do anything to stop it.
Dragged.
Dragged, injured.
What happened?
She's injured.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Um.
she was injured if she
Yeah.
wasn't physically injured anyways, but
Yeah.
what happened?
She interrupted a town hall.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the representatives had gone home on break and were having town halls, and
Mm,
she interrupted to question. And the sheriff called her a little girl. I can't remember if the representative called her a little girl or, but the sheriff, right. It's a big story right now. I'll try to find it and link it. But the thing that came out of it was I was watching a couple things. First of all, people didn't know how to stop it and it needed to be stopped because two of the men that were dragging her out did not identify themselves as law enforcement. They were private contractors and they've actually had that revoked because um, they were not in integrity with what they were doing.
got it.
So they've had their business license revoked.
Wow.
Um, but also, people were filming and not doing direct action of stopping the abuse. So that's yes, somebody needs to film it. So this is the trick, right? Like, yes, it needs to be filmed because we're holding people accountable. But if somebody's being injured, y'all, we have to stop that. Like,
So what are the rights for interjecting? Somebody's
right,
getting yoked up, she's
right,
speaking, and now she's off the floor.
yeah.
And what is somebody that's at the town hall meeting legally allowed to do without fear
Well,
of,
and I
and this is
honestly,
without us being lawyers, y'all, but we do
no,
have
that's
some
good.
lawyers connected,
Yeah.
some women connected in wisdom, okay?
Well,
But
and
that
here's the thing, just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do.
yeah,
That's what I
no,
wanna
that's true.
say, because here's the thing, a lot of the laws during the Holocaust were legal
Hmm.
or illegal. Like,
That's a good point, and things are
good
changing now,
people didn't do things because it was illegal.
right?
Slavery was legal,
Right,
didn't mean it was right.
that part.
So that's the other thing we have to start questioning ourselves
Mhm,
about is just because it's legal doesn't mean it's correct,
mhm, and my thing now, what I've been thinking about with the changes is, will people know what's legal or not? Or is it just a lot of confusion because we don't know the updates, we don't know what was, we don't know what is, we don't know
right?
where are we with student loans? I would love to know, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and all the things. So that's why I love this season, y'all. We did have a lawyer on. Chrissy was amazing. Chrissy
Ah, Lady
Uberopoulos.
Shark.
Come
Lady
on.
Shark.
Okay. Now we're talking about legal literacy right now, but we were talking about financial literacy this day,
Mhm.
gaining financial literacy to become a lady shark. She has a book out talking about how to become a millionaire in your 30s, right? She says it's not too late if you're listening to this. And like Christine, you were smelling pecan trees more than 30 years ago. Okay. It is okay. But she talks about being prepared, how you can show up and things that you can do to make sure that you're taken care of financially. We had a really good time having a conversation
Mhm.
with her.
We really did. That was a powerful conversation.
Yeah,
We
and
really had a good season. Like, this season started before the holidays, right?
yeah, it did.
This
It
season
did.
started with Shanti Refuge and journaling.
Well, it actually started Shanti was the 2nd episode, 178 with intellectual wellness. The first one was Heather Warren with family constellations and
Mhm.
environmental wisdom. And so
Mhm.
we could talk about it, but guided journals for wellness with Shanti Journal Bay, amazing,
Come on.
like it's things like this. This is why people need journals. because when you try to talk in the town hall meeting, you might get scooped up, okay? And in other meetings, you might get treated
Gotta
a certain type of
process
way.
it. Yeah.
So how
Ooh,
do you process it, right? And these guided journals are things like self-care, self-love, different things she walked through with her therapist and her psychotherapist. And through her experiences, she was sharing how the different prescriptions and stuff weren't working and she knew she didn't want to take medicine. This was actually what helped her through the years of trauma and being able to process and coming out on the other side. So I love what she's doing. She has a box, has different ways to support her clients,
mhm.
and we were definitely happy to talk to Shanti finally about intellectual wellness after meeting her for the first time.
Right? Yeah. I've
Yeah.
been so thrilled with the people that have been coming on the show and
Mhm.
that we have coming up. Like, it
Yeah.
is just we women across this country are doing amazing work, y'all.
Hmm. And that reminds me of what Madison said with the emotional and mental wellness, you know. And this is a young lady, when you look up her story, because I had to look up who she was, right? After
Mhm.
we talked, because I told her I didn't know who she was. And BET had this article about this racist rant that her boyfriend at the time went on. And so when we're talking about women and what they're doing, I asked her, okay, now as a black woman who used to have a certain relationship with black women, now it's healthier. What do you where do you sit with it? How do you feel about it? And she was talking about all the work that women are doing, how supportive we are at the community, things like that, you know, when you
Mhm.
really tap in and see what's actually going on. But talking about family constellations, talking about knowing your rights in the environment, that just reminds me of how even the relationships that you have, you know, whether it's romantic, whether it's professional, being mindful of where you are. And then, like her episode was talking about, being yourself, you know, allowing them to see you in your full
Right?
brevity. And I would want to say, even if I was carried out of a town hall meeting, which might be likely talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness, who knows? I'm still happy with what I said because that's the
Right?
authenticity. And I want,
Right?
when we follow up with why I was carried out, us to be talking about spiritual wellness or whatever it is, and you to know that, well, let's
Right?
talk about why this happens and what we can do better next time.
Well, and I've been watching so many videos. I'm not exactly sure what point she was raising, but one of the
Mhm,
point that women, I think, especially need to know in America right now
mhm,
is about the SAVE Act that they're trying to pass. Have you heard
mhm.
about this?
I've heard of it. Remind me what it is.
Okay, so this is a law that they're trying to pass.
Mhm.
And it's under the guise of voter fraud, which voter fraud has already been eh,
A
proven as
thing.
false. Well, no, it's really been proven false that there is
Mm,
less than a certain, the percentage of voter fraud in our country is
mm,
minuscule compared
mm.
to what they try to say it is, right?
Got it.
And what they try to do is disenfranchise voters in the
Mhm,
name of we're protecting the vote. So this act, which you hear Save Act, you think, oh, that's a good thing, right? What
mm,
they're calling for is that in order to vote, you would have to your voter registration would have to match your birth certificate or your passport.
mhm.
What that means for women is it immediately disenfranchises, I think it's 82 million women or something.
That was like
Because
85 million we talked
it
about
might
last
be
week.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you have taken your husband's name or your name has changed, your voter registration won't match
Mm,
unless you've got the means and have a passport. So
mm,
this is disproportionately going to affect poor women and
mhm,
women of color, and it's not okay.
mhm.
So I will put a link in our show notes to invite people how to reach out to their representatives. Um, I have a new app called Five Calls a Day
Mhm.
that is fabulous. Like you look at the issue you want to talk to, and it gives you the script, and you
Beautiful.
call, and easy peasy.
Beautiful.
Um,
And, like, stuff like that I love, being a voter ambassador in this last election and reaching out to people, doing, again, reaching out to 5 a day, doing stuff like that. It feels like it'll take a long time, but when you have tools like that, it's really easy. Of
mhm.
course, make sure that you're reading it, make sure that that's actually what you agree with, that
Yeah.
those are your values and things like that, but there's so many things to make it easier than it used to be. I can't imagine flipping through a telephone book or trying to actually pull up somewhere and have to go in person and talk to somebody.
Well, and remember then they had a switchboard.
Mm,
They still have a switchboard.
Mhm.
at the but it's quicker because of
Yeah,
technology. But,
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot right now. There's a lot. And so, everybody's always like, pick your lane, just like
yeah.
pick your dimension of wellness or pick your expertise, right?
You know
But
how I feel
they
about that.
all like that's me. Like
Right,
they all kind
right.
of intersect,
They do.
and we try to bring topics that affect our audience, that
Yeah,
affect women in this country,
yeah.
and or people that identify as women.
Mhm.
And this voter one is a big one because
And
we could lose our right to vote.
and it's crazy because isn't there, pushback about women keeping their last name? You know what I mean? So it's like you don't wanna hyphenate it,
Oh,
you don't want us to keep it, and now we change it and it's changed and now I can't vote. That's crazy. Is 1919 again? That's
right.
crazy. That's crazy.
Well, one of the things that is written out in Project 2025, which the Heritage Foundation wrote,
Mhm.
and which is kind of the playbook that this new administration is using,
Mm.
is that they believe that head of household and the men should vote, and that women should not vote, that the men should vote for them.
And what happens when head of households are disproportionately incarcerated and not present? Well, then that would make the woman the head of household. They're still
Hmm.
present, but it's just different. And there is so many layers that we could talk about it,
So
but
many layers,
my
friend.
goodness, my goodness,
So many layers. We need chocolate and tea. Um,
so much. Chocolate breaks me out. You know what I mean? I'm at the point where I want to love things that love me back, and chocolate, I want it to be on the list, but
so sorry.
I'm trying to figure out which type, but it might be none of them. We're gonna have to figure it out. But that's when we go to alley and belonging and finding tribes of meaning, right?
Hmm.
Again, I want to be around people who love me, who uplift me, just like
Hmm.
her sisters in community in South Africa that helped her come from this uh shy, quiet, not wanting to be in the forefront person to this political activist working with things with the government, doing things through her construction company, winning awards, being a speaker and an author, all these things now, she was on for spiritual wellness. And I was really encouraged for her in her 60s to feel like she is younger every year, more alive every year, because she is now living her authentic story. And felt and feels like at 60, that's supposed to be her story. And now I get to have 30 years of encouragement and an example of doing that, and we could keep going, to inspire everybody that we reach with this podcast because it's so important.
Well, in our upcoming book, I mean, I think about that because since the last time we were on air, we
Yeah.
did our Why Become a Connected and Wisdom author call and
Mhm.
met some new folks and
Yeah, we
heard new stories. And really, you and I take it for granted, I think, sometimes because we've been doing this a minute and we talk every Wednesday. And we've written 2 books together and
do.
coming out with this 3rd one, I sometimes forget that people can still be shy about this.
Mhm.
And, it was really inspiring last week to have those
Mhm.
conversations with potential authors and people that we all have a story to tell, y'all. I
Yeah, we do.
mean, we all have a story to tell, but if you know, like, you always wanted to be an author and you want that story written,
Mhm.
that's come talk to us. Check out our info. We're
Yeah.
we're launching book 3 and it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, and for me, I always go back to Phillis Sweetley. I remember, little Shannon leaving the library, and I was just so excited to go back and get my next book and started reading Nancy Drew after that and all this stuff, but I was always inspired by Phillis Sweetley's work coming from not, it being illegal to read and write, and now she's an
Mhm.
author and a poet, and I
Mm,
saw this article not too long ago. She even had to go to trial and prove that her poetry was hers and original and all these things, Um, and so that's what I think about is not wanting to become an author because I don't know if I had thought that far as somebody who loved to read. I was just
mhm.
thankful to be able to read, and I was speaking. I've been speaking for a long time and been winning awards since I was little for it. Um, but to be an author and a press, like I literally hadn't thought about it, but I do love people's stories. And so it does surprise me when women of all ages get shy or question, do I have something to talk about for a dimension? Does my story want to be shared?
Or does
But
my story matter?
Yeah,
And
that's
the
what it
answer
is.
to
Does
that
my
is yes.
it's
Your
absolutely,
story
right.
matters,
And it's environments like we're talking about that make it make sense why we feel that way.
right?
Because in other places, you might not have been carried out, but the story didn't get told, it didn't get heard, and that's what
Right.
Connecting the Wisdom Press is about, not only being able to share your story 1,000 words at a time, but getting paid for it, and us paying you for it more than other publishers pay you for it, us being mindful of, taking care of our creatives and our artists and honoring their time, honoring their work and their contribution, and not keeping everything for ourselves while also honoring ourselves for the work that we do and put in. So we made a business of it and didn't just do it out, on the side out of Women Connected. And that's all part of how we do it and how we keep it sustainable, because when you talk
Right.
about community care, a lot of times in business, women are pushed to the nonprofit side. You are pushed to the hobby and it's never officially set up. And you're not talking about profit margins and cash flow and budgets and percentage allocations. It's different.
Do you know what that made me think of?
What make you think of?
Not a guest from last season, but
Yeah.
one of our coffee and chats this season that we've
I still get
had.
the emails. So good, y'all. So good, y'all. When we talk about the people that we're connected to, now it's to the point where the resources that I've used for years, that we've used for years, now we're meeting the people who are connected to those resources. So I
People who
kept
wrote them.
who wrote them. I was thinking about her this week. I think her name is Suzanne. What is it? It's in my notes. Y'all are gonna hear these pages turning. Hold on, let's see.
It's okay. That's why we're live. You can hear the
Yeah, that
pages
part.
turning.
Right.
No sound effects here.
That part. Yes, Suzanne. Super excited to meet her. And again, y'all, when we talk about how do we do it, profit first, I could tell you for Shayla Glow, through the moving of the retail space, the support that was expected over the years, different things that's happened, like who knows what would have happened had the accounts not been separated, the percentage allocations been intentional, and trying to follow a system that works for business instead of the system that I'm still updating and working on my literacy for personally. So
Right.
that's why we
Financial
do this.
wellness and occupational wellness.
It's so important.
Who did
So
we
important.
have season 22 for those
Let's
two
see.
categories?
So for financial, we talked about, where is it? Chrissy Grigoropoulos, right? How to be
Yep.
a lady
The
shark.
Lady Shark.
And then for what was the other one you said?
Occupational wellness.
Occupational. Ooh, well, this one was different. We were supposed to be talking about protecting your stuff, and I think this was
Oh,
a
I
legal
remember that.
conversation, right? About
Mhm.
covering your assets, making sure you have your trademark, things like that. What we ended up talking about is protecting your peace, right? And that's very
Mhm.
relevant in this season. Okay, I want to
Mhm.
be a lady shark. Millionaires in my 30s sound great, but in order to build business and scale it, there's going to be turbulence. There's going to be stuff that happens. And that turbulence, a lot of times, is why people, I think it's over 90% of businesses, right, don't make it to 5 years. And we're on our way to 5 years. So
Mhm.
protecting your peace as you do that, so important, especially as
Right.
you're working.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. For social wellness, y'all, we talked about how to heal and Be in Your Body Every Single Day by Maureen Clancy, or with Maureen Clancy. And that's been really important. You were talking about earlier practices that have not been in effect. You reminded me of what I talk about with my joints with Shayla Glow. And I was laughing. I said, how long has it been since I did that intentionally at night? Like, yes, I'm still making sure I put my glow butter and my oil on, but am I going
Taking
ankles,
the time.
knees, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how
Mhm.
long it had been. And
Mhm.
what I've been working on, y'all, before, again, I would start at my toes and my ankles, but I talk about glowing from head to toe, right? So I've been doing a better job at starting at the top and going to the bottom. So I just need to rework it in. The logistics are completely different. The season is different. It's a different river, like we talked about, right? But those non-negotiables and us pouring into ourselves double or a little more this year, 4 years, however long, um, is definitely been top of mind for me every day.
Right? Because the river feels especially deep and running fast right now.
Yeah.
So finding those stepping stones of wellness, of where are
Mm,
the places we can rest, where are the places we can cross, what can we do? I
yeah.
think that's really it's really powerful to name and identify and that they might change, you know,
Mhm.
that they might change, that things
Yeah.
may not look the same from day to day.
Yeah, and that reminds me of Achilles' conversation last week, y'all, with physical wellness,
So
being
good.
present, my goodness, for
So good.
soulful wellness, right? And what I've been holding on to is her showing us the difference of being on the yoga mat in the studio, calm and centered and stretching, to going to a modeling gig, right, or audition, and how on you have to be and strutting and popping and everything
Mhm.
you have to do to hit the pose and everything. It feels like for me the same between being an entrepreneur and then still working, right? It's like over here we go with the flow, we build it, we pivot, we do these things, and over here it's you can do those things, but needs to be done a certain way in a certain context based on somebody else's leadership and based on the way the river looks that day, you know? Um,
Mhm.
and so it was a beautiful conversation.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Good stuff. Well, what are you doing when you think about the 8 dimensions of wellness?
Mhm.
What are you thinking about at the end of season 22?
What came up is get it done. You know, why was I up at till 6 something this morning getting things done that hadn't been done? And usually, I'm committed to 8 hours of sleep. It will be pushed to the next day. It'll still happen on time or early a lot of times. But the last few months, like you shared, right, Christine, with your dad passing away in May, it's been a whole whirlwind of we were preparing for this for years. Now this has happened. What does it look like to walk through it? And what does everything look like as as we walk through it, you know? Um, and so being able to get back to a place of tapped in, back on quotes, right? Normal scheduling and right? My
The
goodness.
setting on the washer. I don't think
Right?
there's normal.
No, really. Um, and getting caught up, because again, each week we talk about one dimension and every season we do a wrap. But how many of those things and the pieces of wisdom and action are we actually putting into place? And not
Mhm.
only putting into place once or twice, but are we building those habits around, like I talk
Mhm.
about in volume 2, maximizing your capacity, right? This is not to burn out. This is not to do the most and then do more, but to live in our potential and live our life to the fullest potential and really live, right? While we're here, like we're talking about how short life is. So, executing and actually getting stuff done for me is really important because I want to
Mhm.
make sure I'm implementing what we talked about, that it's not just niceties and nice ideas and things that sound good. And I still need to go back to season 1, Sheila K. Collins, and remember the art that this grief is reminding me to live out in my life, but that I've actually made it a habit and done it. So I would say getting things done. What about you?
Whew. I mean, rest is top of mind for me right now. Like, I mean, I am getting a lot done and things are busy and work, but really that reminder to rest, that it's okay to pause. It's okay, like even especially, well, I wouldn't say even, I would say especially with activism,
Mhm,
that, when we think about the fact that there's a choir and you can catch your breath and the singing continues, that we
mhm,
can set it down for a moment or an hour, a day or a weekend. We got to pick it back up. Like
mhm,
we have to pick it back up, but that we are allowed to rest. And I'm really thinking about us, and when we had the conversation of protecting our peace, I don't think I'm doing as good of job as I need to about shutting off my social media, because
mhm,
it's been a fire
mhm.
hose of information, and I want to stay in a loop and I want to be in
Yeah,
touch, and so I know when I need to reach out to my representatives,
yeah.
and that news cycle is 24 hours a day right now. Speaking of, I don't know if you ever watch
Mm.
MSNBC. Do you watch MSNBC?
Mm.
Mm.
Tell me
The
about it.
Read Out, Joy Reid, love
Mm.
her.
Yeah.
They canceled her show.
Mm.
Katie Fang
Mm.
canceled her show. So the women of color, they got rid of
Mm.
their shows.
Mm.
And I want to follow them wherever they go and find out what's going on. But just powerful, strong women who have been telling the truth and
Mhm.
calling things out.
Mhm.
And so paying attention,
Yeah.
right? And I know some people for their wellness are like, oh, I'm just not going to look at it. It's too much. And Sheila's the one that taught me this, right? She's been
Mhm,
one of my mentors for years. She's like, especially as white women,
mhm.
that's a privilege to look away. That's
Mm,
a privilege. And we need to be paying attention because so many people are
yeah.
affected right now.
I think it depends. I would say that for Black women or women of color, sometimes you need to not,
Oh,
right?
sure,
There's that.
sure.
But I would also say women in general, maybe it's a lot right now. I
It
wouldn't
is.
keep that woman, even if she is white, right? I wouldn't force her to look at it. If she says, "Hey, I need to step away," then absolutely
Oh,
step
yeah.
away.
Trust me, I'm talking about both,
I
right?
definitely hear you. Yeah.
That you need to set it down, but
Mhm,
not the spiritual bypass. Like
mhm.
not the not looking at it and thinking
Right,
somebody else is going to take care of it in the meantime.
right, right. And I can tell you that's where I was in the first term, and it was, "Okay, this is what's going on," and I was building businesses, doing different stuff, right? This time it's like, world could be completely different at the end of this 4 years. You wanna pay attention to where we are, where we're stepping, and the schedule has been so busy that I have not paid attention as much as I would like to, but we're still in the game, you know what I mean? And so we're still gonna be paying attention.
And well, and good news, y'all. I mean, I want to
Mhm,
say good news. Like, our energy shifted if you're a longtime listener because we've been a little tired the last couple of weeks. But the good news is the people responding, the people calling their senators and their representatives, it is having a difference. Like, we
mhm,
are making an impact. So I don't want you to think that it's not worth it, like that
mhm,
it's too much or it's because things are making a difference.
mhm.
And your voice does matter.
Yes, it
Like,
does.
your voice matters.
Mhm. Even if you were the only one, even if
Hmm.
you feel unheard, and with everything going on, I can almost guarantee you are not the only one. So, like you said, there is a choir that will
Right.
keep singing. What were
And
you
I
gonna
want to
say?
say, well, I was thinking about today because on break, I had some family members here who
Yeah.
are definitely of a different political persuasion than I am.
Okay.
And they brought up something.
Mhm,
And I said, and these were my exact words, and I just credit Cecile Armstrong and everyday activism. Like, she has taught me
mhm,
so much about how
yeah,
to speak up, even when your voice is quaking, or even when,
mhm,
you know, excuse me,
mhm,
you're not. And I just said, I respectfully disagree. And in my experience, and I have a lot of people that work in this field, and I
mhm,
started naming some, here is what is happening on the ground.
mhm,
And yes, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and
mhm,
it's a fire hose of information, which is
mhm,
part of the point. So we
mhm,
can't pay attention. So
mhm.
find people that are credible sources. I'm going to go on mute for just a second and cough. So I'm going to let
Okay.
you talk while I do that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love being connected to women connected in wisdom for people like Cecile, right? But always in any category, if I need help legally, I can reach out to Chrissy Grigoropoulos. I'm not going to rely on myself, right? I'm going to reach out to the lawyer. I'm going to reach out to somebody else that we just interviewed today who's also still a practicing lawyer, but also considers things in a holistic way, right? If it's fine. Well, I guess that's financial, but spiritual, physical, same thing. Make sure that you have your personal council of people who you trust, who you vetted, that will know, will give you the information that you need in the time that you need it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And being connected, y'all. I think during these times when things are hard or things are challenging or things are scary because we don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen, being connected to our communities,
Mhm.
being connected to each other,
Yeah.
and knowing that you do have people that care and love you, and yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about it. We have this wisdom and action up here for our listeners. If I had to say what I'm doing, definitely getting it done, but also being mindful of the weight of it, so it's not like a get it done by any means necessary. It's this is what I feel like I have space to do. I feel like I'll have more rest after. So maybe let's say execution and mindfulness
Hmm.
for my wisdom in action. That's where I would say I am at the end of season 22. What
Okay.
about you?
Okay. I think my wisdom in action is going to be connected to nature.
Mhm.
or well, I tend to always be connected, but just look to nature because
Mm,
it's such a recharge for me, and it's also that long game, right? Like trees grow for how many years and sway in the wind and recover from things. And so I think looking to that for some of my self-care, but also hope and groundedness.
yeah.
So I think that's going to be my wisdom in action.
I love it. And
So,
y'all talking about hope, I do have an update for you, Christine, too. We were talking about Ja and have
hmm
mentioned Ja on the podcast, right? Y'all had a Shayla Glow affiliate who was missing. I found out at the beginning of this month that he was missing for months, right? So we talk about connection, we talk about communication. Thankfully, I talked to somebody who is gonna another Shayla Glow affiliate who's gonna come on soon. Hopefully, we'll see. And they know each other, and they're saying that they have seen him at an old job, and we're gonna go up and check on him at the beginning of next week. So we'll see if he's there. We're willing to pop up and hope that he comes since he's been showing up every day. But different things have happened for the connection, and
hmm
so definitely reason to celebrate. So many other
mm,
things could have happened, right?
right,
And when we talk about staying connected, you and I have talked about it a little bit. What does that look like, right? With the people that you love that we're talking about loving up on, with the people that are in your circle, how far out do you let them go? Me and Dr. Joe Veazey, we don't let each other go too far. If it gets too quiet, drifting out too far
right,
in the water, you gotta
right.
start calling, start showing up, start tapping in so that we know that everything's okay.
Right? Charticia was just saying that to me on text
Yeah.
about, she creates a check-in phrase with people
Mhm.
and that they use. And if a text or email comes in and that's all it says, it's
Mhm.
known that it's mandated no matter what's going on, you need to respond. Because if not, within 3 hours, somebody's going to pull up to where your place of business,
I'm
right?
pull up quick,
Pull
okay?
up.
I'm talking about in state, out of state, I will pull up. That's important.
So, right? And having that because as you were saying that about your
Mhm,
friend who disappeared for a little bit, I don't know if you've seen those ads on social media that says like ladies disappear for 3 months and
mhm.
come back this, right? They're trying to
Yeah, it's
sell you
been like
something.
6 months. They trying to have everybody
Right?
disappear. Yeah.
But it's also like, okay, if you need to disappear, which
Yeah,
you need to
right.
maybe just set it down for a minute.
Yeah.
Just make sure you got more than one person that knows, like
Mhm.
your circle and your connection, because
Yeah.
you are worthy and you are valued, and people do care and love you,
Yeah.
and will care if you go missing, right?
And
Like,
if not, then that could be, emotionally manipulative, right?
mhm,
Really, with people really going missing, really with
mhm,
things really
mhm,
happening. Now, if this person is setting healthy boundaries, like we talked about earlier, now I have to disconnect the care. And you don't want your
mhm,
community, your tribe of meaning, like we're talking about, to have to disconnect the care because you're
mhm,
not responding. And so
mm,
that's what I heard with Chartisia's her different phrases that she has.
mhm,
One, the phrase goes out. So again, y'all, and what I use in my circles is throw a yellow flag, not a red flag, right? So don't let it
mhm,
get it to red and you don't have the capacity to reach out. When
mhm,
it gets to yellow and you feel like you need some space, the rule is to reach out because
mhm,
sometimes that doesn't happen, right? And then if it's mandatory to respond, now as soon as you can, the other person, the rule is to respond, okay? And that we're gonna tap in. So
mhm,
I like that because Charticia will pull up. I know she's good
mhm,
for that.
mhm. And I'm
Mm,
so glad we're connected, people who do,
yeah,
who will pull up.
me too.
And if you're not, if you're in that place that you currently feel like, Christine, Shannon, I don't have that person.
Yeah,
Like, let's build some community. Like, let's find ways to build and find people that are authentic
yeah.
and willing to pull up for you.
And tap into Women Connected in Wisdom, y'all, because it's
Mhm.
literally, um,
Got
one of my
women all over the
main
world.
like, me and Jailon pull up quick on Zoom, and she's in Alexandria,
Mhm.
Egypt, you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
she is right there on WhatsApp, right there for
Mhm.
Zoom anytime, And that's one of my motivations of building it. I didn't grow up around my family, so I had one person. I had my dad.
Mhm.
That was the only person, and then he got sick, and so we're writing about it in volume 3. So if you don't have a lot of people, it's okay. That's what we're building, So
Mhm.
what I've been thinking about recently is who are the people who reach out to me,
Yep.
right? If you have a
Yep.
good standing relationship with them, if they're a safe place, if you feel like you can lean a little bit, maybe those are your people for the season, right? People are in your life for a reason, a season, in a lifetime. So maybe those are your seasonal people who might turn into lifetime people, lean into them. If you have people who you're further from that you want to stay connected with, send a little reach out, send a flag. Again, a lot of people are going through a lot. We want the people that we love to be able to communicate well and know how to do things and be emotionally intelligent, but sometimes capacity shifts, right? So even if they were amazing, maybe they're not right now at this moment, and maybe it's still an opportunity that they have that you can continue to work on in this stage of your relationship. So I know sometimes we talk about no new friends and you can't sit with me, but that's not what we do at Women Connected. Okay, we make new friends all the time.
You can't sit with me.
My goodness. And, if you're rude and frenemies, all this stuff, no, you can't sit with me, but
Whoo!
if you're supportive and looking for a tribe, we could talk about it. Okay.
Right, right.
Yes. Yeah,
Mm,
so let's see if there are any guests and resources that we have not talked about. Y'all, for season 22, we talked about Heather Warren with environmental wellness, Shanti Journal Bay Refuge for intellectual wellness. Again, we took some breaks. Occupational wellness, we talked about protecting your peace. Financial wellness, talked about gaining financial literacy to become a lady shark with Chrissy
mm,
Grigoropoulos.
mhm.
Spiritual wellness with Allison, how do you say it? Via, I believe is correct for her German last name, for belonging and finding tribes of meaning. For emotional wellness, we talked to Madison Butler for Let Them See You. Social wellness with Maureen Clancy, how to heal and be in your body every single day. And last week, before this week's wrap, we talked to Akili Yasmin for physical wellness and being present for soulful wellness. So
Mm,
good. Check out some of those episodes if you missed it.
so good.
Download it. Get connected to their resources.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm excited to start season 23,
Yeah, I know.
episode 186. We have an incredible slate of guests coming y'all's way,
Yeah, we
and
do.
women that you're going to want to be connected to, their
Right?
resources, their communities, their wisdom, all of it.
Yes. And y'all, we have this event tonight. We moved it from earlier this month. Was it the end of last month? Our Connected and Vision Party. So we're talking about being connected to community, but if you want to tap into yourself a little bit more, daydream about what you see for yourself for 2025, outside of the fire hose of information, whether it's at work, social media, the news, wherever it is, what do you see for yourself? Where do you want to be when it's this time next year? Come join us in purposeful community. We'll be going on at 6:30. It is going to be on Zoom. So you can join us in the room as we build our vision together. And again, if you have a story that you're like, I would say it in a town hall meeting, I would say it on the podcast, I want to say it in front of high schoolers, college students, the UN, wherever you want to go speak, talk to us about getting connected with Connected and Wisdom Press. We would love to support you in lifting up your story and becoming an author either in our collaboration volume for volume 3 or maybe your own personal story. We could talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great job, my friend.
Thank
So
you.
grateful for you,
You
our
too.
work together in the world, and I just
Yes.
look forward to more.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. We will be live here at 5 next week.